Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Stock Investor Pro webinar. I am John Bykowski, President of the American Association of Individual Investors, and I'll be moderating today's session. Today's presenter, Wayne Thorpe, is the Program Manager of Stock Investor Pro and has been using the program for nearly 20 years. Over the next hour or so, Wayne will be answering questions that you users have sent in prior to today. We'll also be taking extra questions that come up during the course of the webinar. After the webinar is finished, an electronic recording of this webinar will be available at the stock investor area of AAII.com, and we will send an email out letting you know when that file is available. With that, I will now turn things over to Wayne.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to this Stock Investor Pro webinar. I'm very excited to be leading this discussion today. At last count, actually, we had nearly 400 registrants, and I'm very pleased with the response that we've received to this webinar. I'd also like to thank all of you who submitted questions ahead of time. Now, in the hour or so that we will have here today, we won't be able to get through all of the questions that were submitted. We got many, many questions. But I do think we got some great questions that I'll be covering today. So with that, John, what's our first question?
The first question I have here is, how can I see if a stock falls from a screen on a weekly or monthly basis?
Well, that's a question we get quite a bit. A lot of our members track either the stock screens that we track at AAII.com, or they track their own stock screens. And so there's a couple of ways in which you can actually go about doing this. The first way you can do this is, let's say, for example, you track a particular screen, such as the Draymond screen. So for example here, let's see, I currently have data installed that's as of yesterday, which is 8:30. So let's go ahead and actually run the David Draymond screen. So as of yesterday, we had 20 stocks that passed. Now, obviously, on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or month-to-month basis, this collection of passing companies will change. But what you can do is you can, in order to track these companies, the first thing you'd want to do is, after you've run your screen, you can, within Stock Investor Pro, save the results of a stock screen as a portfolio. So in this example, I've run the David Draymond screen with data as of 8:30. So in order to save these collection of 20 companies that passed, minor technical issue. We'll just have to restart the program here very quickly. But in order to save the stocks that passed the Draymond screen, again, we're going to have to go back through and load the Draymond screen. So again, we have 20 companies that passed as of 8:30. So we're going to go and file and save this notebook as a portfolio. So we go ahead and click that. So again, what this will do is save the 20 companies that passed the Draymond screen as of 8:30 into a portfolio. So I'm going to go ahead and name this portfolio, and I'm going to call it Draymond, and actually I'm going to put the date of these companies. So it's going to be the Draymond 2016 08/30, because again, that represents the companies that passed with data as of 2016 8/30/2016. So we have this company, we ran the screen today, and we can start tracking this going forward. But let's say I ran the screen as of, for example, the end of July. And so what I did is actually I went back and ran the Draymond screen as of July 29th, 2016. So the data as of the end of July. And so these are the companies, again, that passed the screen as of 7/29/2016. Now, back then, we had 19 companies that passed the Draymond screen. So let's say these are the 19 companies that passed as of the end of July. How would I find out which companies, now that passed the end of July, now currently pass the stock screen? So what we've done is I've loaded my 19 companies that passed the Draymond screen as of July 29th of 2016. So the next step then is to actually open the screen editor, because again, we want to see what stocks that passed as of the end of July are now currently passing the stock screen. And we go back, and again, we're looking at the David Dremin screen. So we load the David Dremin screen into the screen editor of Stock Investor Pro. Now, when you run screens in Stock Investor Pro, you're running those screens against the active set of companies, which are the companies that are in the stock notebook. By default, when you open the program, the collection of default companies is the entire database of companies, roughly the 7,400 companies that are in the stock database. However, when you load a portfolio, the companies in that portfolio become the active set of companies. So in this case, we've loaded our passing companies of the Dremin screen as of the end of July. Those now are the active companies in the stock notebook. So when I click the How Many button, we see that of the 19 companies that passed the Dremin screen as of the end of July, only 14 currently pass the screen. Now, when you do this, it's a little more of a manual process. Actually, I'm standing here and I'm looking at I have a collection of the tickers of the 19 companies that passed as of the end of July. And I know now we've gone from 19 to 14, and I know just by having my own list of tickers that passed as of the end of July, I know that Foot Locker, Herman International, Ladder Capital, Staples, and Thor Industries have fallen out of the list of passing companies for the Dremin screen between the end of July and through the close of 8/30/2016. So this is an example then of how you can track which stocks fall out of a stock screen week to week or month to month. It's basically you first run your screen at whatever point in time, save those companies as a portfolio, and then as you move forward and update the data, again, either on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, you can then run that screen against the companies that passed that you've saved as of a certain point of time to see which companies fall off. So that is how you can go about tracking the companies that fall out of a stock screen on a weekly or monthly basis. So
now, I have kind of a related question, I guess. So in this case, you're showing our users how to look and see how a stock, whether or not a stock passes from month to month or week to week if it's been in a screen. I've got a related question here that asks, how can I see if any of the stocks that I own or track, like on a personal list, pass a given screen?
Okay. Definitely. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unload all of the different screens and portfolios that I was previously talking about. So inevitably we all have either individual stocks that we own ourselves or some type of a watch list or something like that. And a lot of times people want to see either stocks that I own or stocks that I track. Do any of these stocks pass an individual stock screen? So the way in which you do that is it's a very similar process to what we just did tracking a stock screen on a weekly or monthly basis. The first thing you need to do is come up with your watch list, which in Stock Investor Pro would be a portfolio. Now, in order to create a portfolio in Stock Investor Pro, we have the portfolio editor. So here you can either manually enter in companies by ticker symbol or by name, or if you have a list of companies in, let's say, a tab delimited text format or something like that, you can also import ticker symbols from a document into the portfolio editor as well. So those are two ways in which you can create a watch list using the portfolio editor. In this case, I've actually already have my own watch list. This is growing up in Michigan. I do track a lot, pay attention to companies that are in Michigan. So I've already created this Michigan watch list, which is currently 48 companies. These are actually exchange-listed companies that reside in the state of Michigan. So this is my watch list. Now, one stock screen that I'm particularly, is a particular favorite of mine, is the John Neff screen. So I'm going to see if any of the 48 stocks that are in my Michigan watch list currently pass the Neff screen, again, as of August 30th, 2016. So I've loaded my portfolio. My portfolio now is the active set of companies in the stock notebook. And now I'm going to go to the screen editor. And instead of the David Drummond screen that I was using previously, I'm going to go down to the predefined Neff John screen. Again, within the screen editor, you can see all of the criteria that make up an individual screen. And now I'm going to apply the screen. So when you're looking at the screen editor, you can see you have this count on column here. Couple things actually to note is, first of all, you can see that the companies in the current portfolio are 48. Again, these are the 48 companies that are in my Michigan watch list portfolio that I've loaded. Then when I apply the screen, we have this count on column here within the screen editor. These are the number of companies in the active notebook, in this case the 48 companies, that pass each of the individual lines of criteria within the John Neff screen. So we can see that the number of companies range from 6 to up to 38 companies that pass an individual line of criteria. And as of August 30th, actually of the 48 companies that are in my watch list, only one, which is Lear Corporation, passes the screen. So that is how you can go about seeing whether or not if there are any companies in a particular watch list that you like to follow pass an individual stock screen.
Kind of a related question in some ways, but we have a lot of predefined stock screens in the system here, and I've got a member here who's asking, how does, I guess David here is asking, how can I get an understanding of what the intent is behind each given stock screen? Is there someplace in the help system that explains or gives a background on each of the various predefined stock screens?
Definitely. You actually have a few different places that you can go to learn about the predefined stock screens that are in Stock Investor Pro. Within the software itself, you have a rather robust help system that here at the top of the program window, if you were to select Help and then Contents and Index, this will open up the help system. And this is actually, we'll probably touch on this a little bit later as well, as far as if you're new to the program, this is also a very good place you can go to start learning about the various features of the program. But for this particular case, oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead. No, so from here you click on what, the predefined or the?
Yeah, that's correct, yes. In this particular case, if you want to learn about the stock screens, you would click on the little plus sign next to the predefined stock screening strategies. And for all of the different predefined stock screens in Stock Investor Pro, in this case, let's actually choose the Neff screen, you then have an article that discusses the underlying philosophy of that screen. So we've selected the Neff screen, and so these articles discuss the underlying premise of the stock screen, the key components, key filters of that particular screen, and why the guru, in this case John Neff for example, why that particular guru or strategy uses the different screening filters that it does use.
Very good. And then I guess sort of tied in some ways to that, someone here has a question like, how can you tell if a stock passes more than one screen?
So this is a somewhat related question here then, is unlike before when we looked at a watch list of companies to see if any companies within a particular watch list pass an individual screen, in this case what you can also do with Stock Investor Pro is you can look at an individual stock and see if it passes one or multiple stock screens that are within Stock Investor Pro. So just like we've done previously, it all starts with our active set of companies. In this case, since we only are looking at one individual company, you create a portfolio of one. So in this case, you would go back to the portfolio editor, you would type in a singular ticker or company name, and save that as a portfolio. In this case, I've already done so. I've created a portfolio that only contains Gentex Corporation, and I load that particular portfolio. So now my active set of companies is only one within Stock Investor Pro. So now we've loaded our portfolio. So now we go to the Tools menu, and unlike before where we were using the screen editor, this time we are going to use the multi-screen selector. This is actually a feature of the program that I think a lot of subscribers aren't aware of, but this actually allows you to run multiple screens simultaneously to see if companies do pass multiple screens. So in this case, with our singular company, Gentex, as the active company, I'm just going to go and click the Add All button here in the multi-screen selector. And what that will do is that will then run all of the stock screens in Stock Investor Pro against Gentex, and it'll tell us whether or not any companies, if Gentex passes any of the screens in Stock Investor Pro. So we're going to expand this out a little bit. And so very similar to what we had previously with the screen editor is we have all of the screens that are to be evaluated, and then we have this count column. Now anywhere where we see a 1, that tells us then that Gentex passed that particular screen. So looking through here, we can see that Gentex passed the Draymond with EPS estimate revision screen, the David Dremen screen, the EPS estimate revisions upward screen. Oops. Actually overshot that a little bit. The invest where value screen, and the PE relative with estimate revision screen, and finally the John Templeton screen. So if my count is correct, I believe that Gentex passed probably about 5 of the nearly 60 screens that we evaluated in this particular example. So again, by creating a portfolio with an individual stock and loading that portfolio within the multi-screen editor, then you can choose which particular screens you want to evaluate. You don't have to evaluate all of the screens if you don't want to. You can pick and choose which screens to evaluate, and then that will tell you if an individual stock passes more than one stock screen in Stock Investor Pro.
Now, in terms of automating the whole process, like if you are, maybe I got a question here, how can I automate the screening, data viewing, ranking process? So someone, in this case a member who every month likes to run the canceling approach and wants to see the same companies with the same view. Is there any way to kind of not have to go through the process of selecting all those individually?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure myself being one of those people, I have a select core group of stock screens that I'm constantly evaluating. Oftentimes I will have a particular data view that accompanies that screen, as well as a specific data ranking as well. And over time it gets a little tedious to every time, select a screen from the pull-down menu, select a view, and then have to go in and specify a rank order. So in Stock Investor Pro, we have a time-saving feature that, again, I think a lot of subscribers might not necessarily be aware of, is in Stock Investor Pro, you have this stock notebook. And what a lot of people probably aren't aware of the fact is the stock notebook is actually a template. Now, by default, when you open Stock Investor Pro, the default template, or stock notebook number 1, has no portfolios, no screen, and the standard view loaded, and by default the ranking is company name ascending. However, you can create different templates that have a specific screen, view, or even a portfolio, as well as a ranking order. So for example, again, as I mentioned before, one of my favorite stock screens is the John Neff screen. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load the predefined John Neff screen. And actually, I've created my own custom view that I've named NEF analysis. Basically, it is some of the key variables underlying the John Neff screen. And then when I evaluate the John Neff screen, I like to view the companies that pass in ascending order by the dividend adjusted PEG ratio, which is part of the view here. And in order to rank the stock notebook, you can simply right-click on a given column that makes up a view, and you can specify either ascending or descending order. So in this case, I'm going to rank the stock notebook in ascending order by the dividend adjusted PEG ratio. So instead of having to go through this process every time I'm within Stock Investor Pro, having done this once, applied a specific screen, a specific data view, and applied a specific ranking order, I can now go into the File menu and save this notebook. So I'm going to call this then my NEF notebook and say OK.
So now, if you quit the program, what happens now?
Yep, I say that's exactly what I was going to do. So let's go ahead and exit the program. So we're starting completely from scratch. And reopen the program here. So now if I want to open a stock notebook that I've created, I go back to the File menu and I select Open Notebook. So here, in this case, I only have one notebook. If you have multiple notebooks, this is where you would choose it from. So the NEF notebook is the only one there. I click OK. Pardon me. So what that does is it opens a new stock notebook, in this case my NEF notebook. But what it also did was run the John Neff screen, apply my NEF analysis view, and ranked the stock notebook in ascending order by dividend adjusted PEG ratio. So by creating your own custom notebooks in Stock Investor Pro, I view this as a really sort of a hidden time-saving feature that instead of having to go through these processes every time, you only have to do it once, save your notebook, and then every time you come back to the program, you simply have to open a new notebook to run a screen, apply a view, and or a data ranking.
I've got a question here, Wayne. Is there a way, what's the best way to copy the results from Stock Investor Pro, like these screening results, and make use of it into another program like Excel?
Yes, actually technically there are two ways in which you can take data from Stock Investor Pro and put it into Excel. You have the option of exporting data within Stock Investor Pro, but over time that has become a little problematic. So a few years ago we initiated added a new feature to Stock Investor Pro, where all you have to do, very similar to a lot of the typical Microsoft Office features, is you can just copy data from the stock notebook and paste that into Excel. So in this case, we're going to just stay with, so we have our 16 companies that pass the NEF screen as of the end of August, and we have a select group of data points as well as a particular data ranking. And let's say I want to export this data, copy this data into Excel for some additional analysis. So all I have to do is right-click on the stock notebook and select Copy Notebook to Clipboard. And you probably saw a very quick window pop up as that data was being copied to the notebook. So then once you've done that, you then open whatever program you want to copy that data into. In this case, I'm going to copy it into an Excel notebook. So I open up Excel, and it's a matter of simply going to paste or right-clicking or good old Control-V, and there you are. All of the data that was in the stock notebook that we copied to the clipboard, we are then able to paste directly into Excel. And the nice feature about this is it actually copies all of the plain English data headings, so you know exactly what these are. And so that is how you can take data from Stock Investor Pro and put it into Excel. One thing I do want to highlight, though, is that all of this is view-driven, and a lot of people want to do a mass data conversion, and just be aware that with the data views in Stock Investor Pro, you are limited to 255 data points that you can have in a particular view that you can copy at one point in time. Now, you could have the entire set of companies in Stock Investor, so roughly all 7,400 companies, and have a data view with 255 data points, but you could copy all of that data into an Excel spreadsheet. But again, you are limited by 255 data points in a particular view.
Kind of related to that, I guess, got a member here, Mr. Douglas, who was asking if there's a way to query the database using SQL directly or any other third-party tools.
The question is, can you sort of directly parse the data, query the data without having to use a Stock Investor interface? The short answer is yes. I mean, the data files are DBF files and whatnot, and I do know that there are users out there that are more advanced computer users, often are programmers, that have created their own query programs that are able to sift through these DBFs and pull data directly from the DBFs without even having to interact at all with the Stock Investor interface. But those are interfaces and queries that have been generated by individual users. Unfortunately, that is not something that AAII is able to support users in developing.
Are there third-party tools, though, that can query data from Stock Investor directly?
I mean, there are.
Like, is Qmatics makes a product for us, for example, or makes a product?
Sorry. Yes, thank you, John. One third-party tool that we do use extensively here in the office is a software package called Qmatics. It's actually developed by an AAII member, and it is an Excel plugin that you can develop, enter in queries, enter in formulas, using Excel formulas that are specific to the XLQ program, and you can actually then set up these formulas within a worksheet in Excel, and it will automatically pull data from Stock Investor into your spreadsheets. It also will allow you to pull delayed price data, as well as if you have brokerage accounts with certain brokers. I don't know those offhand. It will also allow you to pull data directly from select brokerage firms as well. So yes, the program is called XLQ. The website is www.qmatix.com. And again, this is a software package that's been developed by an AI member. We have no business relationship with them, but it is a software package that we use extensively and makes it very easy to pull data directly from Stock Investor into an Excel spreadsheet.
This is sort of tied towards frequency of data updates, and I've got a member here that notices when he starts up the program now on a daily basis, he gets notes that the data has been updated. Is this a change in frequency, and what, if he doesn't want to update the data process, what's the best way to do that?
Yes, actually for the last several weeks, for those of you that are regular users of Stock Investor Pro, you've probably noticed that over the last several weeks you are being prompted on a daily basis to update the data in Stock Investor Pro. And this is something we've been testing now over the last several weeks, and actually we will officially announce with the month-end release tomorrow, is that now Stock Investor Pro does offer daily data updates. These updates will be available roughly around noon Central Time, Tuesday through Saturday. The price data will be through the previous day's close, as well as any updated financial statement data that might have been added to the Thomson Reuters database over that period of time. So as an enhancement to Stock Investor Pro subscribers for no additional cost, we are now offering daily data updates instead of the traditional weekly and monthly updates. But we have, pardon me, some users have said, that they aren't interested in being prompted to update the data on a daily basis, and is there a way for people to bypass that? And the answer is yes. Actually, I'm going to close Stock Investor Pro here. By default, when you install Stock Investor Pro and have the shortcut icons added to your desktop, by default, the program that you're running with the default Stock Investor Pro shortcut, the first thing that does is it launches the data updater. It checks to see if new data is available. If so, it prompts you if you'd like to install that data, and then if you say yes, it installs that data. But there is a way to bypass that where you can just open the program immediately. And what you do is if you go within Windows Explorer, and if you go to the default location, assuming that you follow the default installation location for Stock Investor Pro, you'll find this in the C drive, Program Files x86, Stock Investor Professional. And within this folder, you will actually find that there are multiple applications. The SI Start that you see, this is actually the program that is started when you double-click on the default desktop shortcut for Stock Investor Pro. This is the SI Start, and again, this is what launches the data updater. Now there's another application that is just called SI.exe. This is actually just the program. This is the program executable file. So if you want, you could copy this shortcut to your desktop. And when you do that, then when you double-click on it, the program automatically runs. And again, even though I did have the most recent data already installed, you can take me at my word that this actually, even if my data was, several weeks old. Go ahead.
Wayne, a question for you. I'm sorry. How is this different from managing it through the Update Stock Investor on the menu that you have in the program itself? I've got a question here.
What this will do is if this particular shortcut will automatically bypass the update. Because again, there's some users out there that don't want to be prompted by that all of the time. Now within Stock Investor, you have with the Update Stock Investor, what this does, check for updates, all this will tell you whether or not the data within the program is up to date or not.
I see. Just as a suggestion here from a member, would it be possible to maybe add an additional icon or a shortcut when the program is installed, one that gives just a direct link to the no update version of the program?
Most definitely. That is something that we currently have a couple of large data projects that we're trying to get through, but that is definitely on my to-do list down the line that will actually add that additional icon. But just to sort of finish off this discussion, as you can see here with my Stock Investor, with my desktop here, I actually have a no update icon, which is actually that si.exe shortcut. So whenever I open use this particular shortcut, it automatically opens the program. And then I have a data update icon, which would launch that SI Start, which is the default shortcut from Stock Investor through the installation. So this is how you can do this currently if you don't want to be prompted to continually, on a daily basis, update the data. And then whenever you wanted to, then you would just run your data update icon to get the latest data. But yes, hopefully in the near future, we will revise the installation to add a a shortcut just for SIEXE to bypass the automatic update.
Now, David here kind of has a question tied towards more of the screening process, and we have a lot of screens here that deal with passing companies or when a company is attractive. Is there a way to tell when it's time to sell a stock or when stock is no longer attractive using a specific stock screen?
Yes, there is actually. And now, for example, if you track the stock screens that we follow at AAII.com, for the hypothetical returns that we quote, we assume that we sell a stock if a stock doesn't pass a screen any subsequent month. So it passes the screen one month. If it doesn't pass the next, for our hypothetical backtesting purposes, we assume that the stock is sold. But we don't advocate that as an optimal sell strategy. For most of us, if we buy a stock that meets a set of criteria for a given screen, pardon me, we want to give it room to grow or to move, as it were. So one sell strategy to consider is basically relaxing the buy screen that you used to buy a stock and relax that screen and sort of turn it into a sort of a quote-unquote sell screen. Now, depending on the strategy that you follow, there may be hard and fast quantitative sell rules, but in other instances, the rules could be much more subjective in nature and would revolve more around your own personal investment style or risk profile. But for one example, let's take a look at the AAII shadow stock screen. So we're going to go back into Stock Investor Pro. Now within Stock Investor Pro, the shadow stock screen is actually the IISSP screen, the Individual Investors Shadow Stock Portfolio or Shadow Stock Screen. So here are the criteria that make up the buy criteria that make up the shadow stock screen. Stock has to have a price of at least $4. It has to have positive earnings for continuing operations for the trailing 12 months in the last fiscal quarter. It has to have a price-to-book ratio of no more than 1. Market capitalization has to be at least $30 million, but can't be any more than $300 million. It excludes companies that are in the financial sector, price to sales of less than 1.2, as well as a company cannot have forecasted earnings for the pardon me, a company cannot have forecasted earnings for the current fiscal year and current fiscal quarter that are negative. So again, these are the buy criteria for the shadow stock screen. Now, for those of you that follow the shadow stock screen, you know that we also have a set of quantitative sell rules that we follow to determine when a company is removed from the shadow stock portfolio. Now, starting off, a company is put on probation if adjusted earnings for the trailing 4 quarters is negative. And then a stock is sold if in a subsequent quarter adjusted quarterly earnings are negative and the trailing 12-month earnings value is still negative. Additionally, a stock is sold if the price-to-book value moves above 3, which is 3 times the current initial criterion of 1.0, and a stock is also sold if the current market capitalization goes above 900 million, which is 3 times the current initial criterion of 300 million. So we have a specific set of criteria that we follow in order to decide when it's time to sell a stock from the shadow stock portfolio. So armed with those sell criteria, what I have done is I actually set up my own shadow stock sell screen, which looks for companies that have earnings per share from continuing operations for the trailing 12 months that are less than 0, a price-to-book value that's greater than 3, and a market capitalization that is above 900 million. So this is my collection of sell criteria. Now I need to apply that against my portfolio. So what I also do, because I also help oversee the model portfolios here at the association, is I actually have a portfolio of all of the current shadow stocks that I am continuously updating as Dr. Clunan makes buys and sells for the shadow stock tracking portfolio. So in this case, I have my current shadow stock portfolio, which includes all of the 29 companies that Stock Investor tracks, and these are the 29 companies that make up the shadow stock portfolio currently. One stock, Global Power, is not in the database because of some filing issues that it's had. But so I've loaded this current shadow stock portfolio. So again, this is my active set of companies. And then I apply my sell screen against my portfolio. So I see here that no companies violate the price to book criteria, because again we have our count on. So 0 companies have a price to book value greater than 3, and no companies have a market capitalization greater than 900 million. However, currently there are 8 companies in the current portfolio that have continuing earnings over the last 4 quarters or trailing 12 months that are negative. So then what I would do is, because we look, Dr. Clunan looks at adjusted earnings when he makes these decisions based on negative trailing earnings, is then I go to my Scottrade account and basically calculate the adjusted earnings for the last 12 months for these companies. And if the adjusted earnings is truly negative over the last 4 quarters, they're put on a probation list. And then the next quarter, if quarterly adjusted earnings are negative, as well as trailing 12-month adjusted earnings are also negative, then those stocks are removed from my shadow stock portfolio. So in this case, we have a portfolio that has an explicit set of sell rules. So that makes things a little easier. But things can get a little more complicated if they're not explicit sell rules. And then it ultimately falls to the investor to decide. The key is, though, is you don't want to be too stringent with your sell rules. As we see here with the shadow stock screen, we allow the price to book and market cap values to expand over time, which should come from price appreciation, which is what we want as shareholders. However, we also have the basic financial strength element that removes a company if it has negative trailing earnings for 2 quarters in a row. So this is one example of how you could take a screen that you used to buy a company and make some adjustments to it, and then apply it to find whether or not there's any stocks that you might want to consider selling. It is a much more subjective process. I'm sure for those of you that track the AAII stock screens, very few of these gurus that we track often will provide explicit sell rules. So it falls to the individual user to come up with some more subjective sell rules to decide whether or not it's something that they want to sell.
Tony here was asking in regards to the lag that exists between when a company files stocks and actually files its reports and when the data is available in Stock Investor. What's the typical lag in that?
Well, the lag, Thomson Reuters prioritizes their data collection and data processing by those companies that are the most active, most widely followed. Now, we've just come out of earnings season, and now that we have these daily data updates, we were seeing that when a company releases an earnings announcement, pardon me, when a company makes an earnings announcement, the more widely followed and more heavily traded companies, oftentimes that select data that was found in the earnings statement was making its way into Stock Investor within a day, if not maybe no more than a day or two. Now that data is not as complete as what you would get from the 10Q, but again, for the more widely followed stocks, the latest data coming from earnings releases is appearing in Stock Investor in a matter of just a few days. Now, the SEC requires that a company file its 10Q within 45 days of the end of its fiscal quarter and within 90 days of the end of its fiscal year. But with electronic filing these days, those deadlines, the timeliness of those reports is much more rapid than 45 or 90 days.
Excellent. I have another question here, and it's from William, and he's asking, I guess it's sort of a two-phase question, really. It's in terms of learning how to use the program. Is there a written manual, or if not, what's the best way to learn how to use the program?
Well, you have one thing that I really have been focusing on as program manager over the last 3, 4, 5 years is to build out the user resources. This isn't a monetary investment that people are making, as well as a time investment as well. This is a pretty advanced this is a pretty advanced software package, and we want to make sure that we're providing all the resources possible so that individual investors using the program feel confident to make investment decisions. So you have a couple places you can go to learn how to use the program. As I touched on earlier, you have the help system within Stock Investor Pro. So if you go to the help menu and select Contents and Index, this will open up the Stock Investor Pro help system. So here you have a number of different categories that you can go through that will literally walk you through step by step through the key features and functionality of the software. I mean, starting with the very basic of how to use the stock notebook to view financial data. What are the financial tabs? So this will actually even walk you through the different data tabs and discuss the underlying data that's in the program. And then it'll take you into more advanced topics such as creating and using screen filters, creating and using portfolios, probably the most advanced topic, creating your own data fields. Within Stock Investor Pro, you can actually create your own data fields that you can use for screening purposes, etc. We also have the field definitions, which is probably, at least for new users, probably the area that you'll be using the most, especially when you start using the screen editor, the view editor and whatnot. Those different editors have what we call the field picker. And this is the field picker within the screen editor. And you can see here that we have all of these different data categories. All of these that are listed here are what we classify as data categories. And then when you expand these data categories, you can see the individual data fields that make up a data category. But for new users, probably the most difficult thing to know is what particular data category a field resides in. So within Stock Investor Pro, we have the field definitions area where you can look up fields alphabetically as well as by data category. But let's say, for example, what data category does the PE multiple belong in? So if we want to look that up alphabetically, we go down to P and expand out the P, and then we look at PE. So when you select an individual field from the field definitions, here on the right side viewing pane you have a variety of information, the data table name, the data category, which is ultimately what we're interested in, the field type and the data range, as well as the actual field definition that describes the data field as well as how you might use that from an investment standpoint. So, but what we're looking at for here was the fact that PE is in the multiples data category. So then if you want to create a filter that's based on PE within your field picker here within the screen editor, then we know that we would select the multiples data category and scroll down, and here we are, is PE. So one place to start if you're new to the program is the help system. Again, it's self-contained right within the program, so you don't have to go anywhere else. But then also over the last several years, we've been devoting a lot of time and effort to expand the online resources that are available to users as well. So if you go to the Stock Investor Pro area of AAII.com, if you just go to AAII.com and were to select the Stock Investor Pro tab, you have a number of options at your fingertips. You have video tutorials on a monthly basis now for the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've been putting out video tutorials that will highlight key functions of the program that you can watch. These videos normally range from maybe about 7 to maybe 15 minutes, and will walk you through, again, key functionality of the software as well as how you can interpret and use various data elements in the software. You also have the Stock Investor News Archive, which if you prefer to have sort of a hard copy discussion of some of these topics, you can go into them and you'll have the video as well, but you can also then have a downloadable, printable PDF version of the discussion, so you can have a sort of a hard copy that'll walk you through a discussion of a particular topic or how to use a specific element of the program. You also have FAQs. Over the last, I've been using the program for nearly 20 years, and I would say easily probably 60 or 70% of the questions we get all distill down to about 3 or 4 different types of questions. And so if you come to the FAQ section of the Stock Investor area, these are some of the most common questions, especially if you have a question, because inevitably questions always come up either after hours or on the weekend. So you can come to the FAQs area and oftentimes get your questions answered there, as well as we have a troubleshooting area, which, I mean, as we've seen here today, every once in a while Stock Investor will have a little bit of a hiccup. And for those of you that have get error numbers and things like that, we have created different error sheets that will discuss some of the common errors that we get with the program, that you can give you step-by-step instructions when you get a particular error number, and it'll walk you through and how you can overcome these different error messages to get the program functioning properly. So you have both the online help system within the program itself, as well as the true online web-based resources that are accessible to all Stock Investor subscribers as well. It is a key benefit that if you've not taken advantage of, I would definitely consider taking a look at.
Well, thank you, Wayne. It looks like the hour went by pretty quickly, and so I probably want to wrap things up here. And I understand that you'll be sending out a survey to all of our participants to get some feedback on this particular webinar, and you have plans to do more of these in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, probably within the next half hour or so, we will be sending out via email a link to a SurveyMonkey survey that I would very much appreciate if everyone who's attended this today would take a few minutes. It'll probably take no more than 5 minutes to answer those questions. Those will be very useful to me. As John said, we do plan on doing more of these in the future, so it'll be very useful to me in order to create webinars that are most beneficial to our users. And then as well as we will be posting this webinar online sometime tomorrow, and we will be sending out a separate email once that file is available online for viewing as well.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Do you want any other concluding statements?
No, as in, I want to thank everyone for participating today. So this was our first one, and I'm very excited about doing this, and I look forward to doing more in the future. Thank you, John, for moderating today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Take care.
Have a good day, everyone.